The brass knob wouldn't budge. I twisted it again, metal grinding like teeth on bone. But the deadbolt stayed defiant in the morning sun. My overnight bag slumped against the porch rail. Hospital pamphlets spilling out beside Daniel's wallet. Spring air sliced through my thin jacket, the same one I'd worn when the monitors flatlined and his hand went cold in mine. I was still in yesterday's clothes. Coffee stains from the ICU waiting room dried like old blood on my blouse. Movement flickered behind the beveled glass. Virginia sat at my dining table, silver hair gleaming as she lifted my wedding Wedgwood teacup, Daniel's anniversary gift, to her lips. The cup I'd washed last Saturday while he napped in his armchair. My thumb jammed the doorbell. The chime rang through the house like a funeral bell. Footsteps clicked, slow and deliberate. The lock clicked. Virginia filled the doorway, face arranged in practiced sympathy, the kind she'd perfected chairing hospital boards and charity galas. "Rachel," she purred, voice crisp with decades of fake authority. "I was wondering when you'd sling back. What's going on? My key doesn't work." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle on her linen blazer, the one embroidered with the HOA crest. "You weren't the primary covenant holder long enough. Dear, no children to carry the family name. Well, the community name. No prenuptial compliance filed with the board. Daniel's gone now. The covenants are clear upon the passing of the registered owner. The HOA assumes temporary stewardship to protect property values." Her lips curved into something that pretended to be gentle. "You don't live here anymore." The words landed like a fine for an unapproved mailbox. Behind her, Allison hovered in the foyer, eyes darting away, clutching a cardboard box of our wedding photos. The pale rectangle on the wall where our picture had hung stared back like a fresh scar. 4 years of marriage, erased while I held Daniel's hand through the final night. The roses I'd planted last fall blazed red against the gray siding, the ones Daniel helped dig holes for, laughing about HOA-approved spacing. "This is my home." My voice came out a whisper. "Was your home, dear?" Virginia's fingers tightened on the doorframe. The board voted unanimously last night. Special assessment for grief-related neglect. We'll pack your personal items and mail them to whatever motel you're haunting. We'll be in touch about the memorial, strictly HOA approved. Of course, no tacky wreaths longer than 7 days. She started closing the door. Standards must be maintained. I backed down the walk, legs numb. The click of the new deadbolt followed me like a gavel. My car sat exactly where I'd left it 4 days ago, rushing Daniel to the ER. The key fob felt like ice. I drove past the coffee shop of our first date, the hardware store where we picked paint samples that matched the HOA palette, the park where he proposed, everything suddenly foreign under the weight of invisible rules. I pulled into the Red Oak Motel on Route 7, fumbling for Daniel's emergency card. The room reeked of bleach and regret. I sank onto the sagging mattress, still clutching his hospital bracelet, the plastic listing details that couldn't save him. My phone buzzed. "Virginia." "Rachel." "Honey over steel. We need Daniel's laptop password for the estate, sorry. The HOA compliance paperwork. There are community heirlooms in that house. I am the community." The words scraped my throat. A pause stretched like a 30-day fine notice. When she spoke again, the honey froze. "Not anymore, dear. The board has spoken." I hung up before she could drop another covenant clause. 2 years earlier, Daniel had sat at our kitchen table, spreadsheets of past due HOA liens scattered like dead leaves. "The company's gone," he'd cracked. "Everything we built gone." I'd held him while he shook. That night, after he slept, I accessed my old savings account, the one my mother started with babysitting money, later filled with landscape architecture paychecks. I refinanced the house alone. Approval letter came 2 weeks later. My name only on the mortgage. Every lien paid. Every special assessment settled before the board even noticed. Now I pulled my worn portfolio from the bag. Behind garden sketches, our wedding photo. Daniel grinning, arm around my waist. Sunset gilding his hair. I traced his face. I promised to protect our home, I whispered. Laptop hummed. I typed, widow HOA property dispute. Results loaded. They thought new locks would leave me powerless. They had no clue what one quiet gardener could grow in the dark. The next morning I called Mark, Daniel's old office manager. Rachel, God, we've been worried. His voice hitched. Virginia cleared his desk yesterday. Said she was next of kin and the HOA president. Mentioned you two were separating. That Daniel was staying with the board before everything. The lie burned like illegal mulch. We weren't separating. I was at his bedside every second. Another text. Attempted bank access on Daniel's accounts. Virginia's third try since dawn. A knock saved me. Monica stood there in jeans and faded UVA sweatshirt. My college roommate turned real estate attorney. She took one look and stepped inside. Don't speak to them again without me. Not Virginia. Not Allison. Not their HOA lawyer. Nothing. I sank onto the bed. Their lawyer. Virginia lunched with Stuart Phillips 2 days before Daniel died. While you were in the ICU, he filed to freeze accounts under community lien enforcement. The room tilted. Allison had moved her suitcases into our guest room the same day. The housekeeper quit rather than help pack my clothes. We need proof of ownership, Monica said. Deed, mortgage, tax records, your name only. I pictured the documents in Daniel's office. The laundry room door. The words slipped out before I planned them. The lock sticks unless you lift the handle exactly right. Virginia would never touch a laundry room. Two beneath her. Monica's eyes narrowed. You're sure? A ghost smile touched my lips. She's too busy enforcing 2.5-inch grass heights. That night, the moon hung low. We parked 3 blocks away. I led Monica around back, past Daniel's roses. The laundry door clicked open with its familiar stubborn groan. Footsteps creaked overhead. Allison's slouched silhouette passed the kitchen window. We froze against the wall until she vanished upstairs. 10 minutes later, Daniel's office was untouched. Too painful. According to the moving company notes, Virginia left. The room smelled of his cologne and late-night coffee, of rebuilding after the business collapse. I snapped photos, mortgage statements in my name alone, property tax bills, home insurance policies, all paid before the board could slap a lien. A black folder caught my eye behind his engineering books. Gold letters, post-HOA agreement, do not discard. Rachel, my hand shook as I opened it. Daniel's signature bold at the bottom. Dated 2 years ago, the week after the company failed. Handwritten note clipped. If mom or the board tries anything, show this to your lawyer. They don't own us. Monica photographed every page. He knew. He protected you. Downstairs, the front door slammed. Virginia's voice carried sharp. Allison, check his office again. There must be something we can use against her for the next board meeting. We slipped out through the laundry room before footsteps approached. The moon silvered the garden as we hurried past Daniel's roses, past the life the HOA queen wanted to seize. Back at the motel, Monica's laptop glowed with Virginia's petition to the probate court. Accusations of emotional manipulation during Daniel's fragile mental state. My name twisted into a gold digger who violated covenants while grieving. All accounts frozen. She's trying to force negotiation, Monica said. But we have the post-HOA agreement. My phone lit up again. Virginia's voicemail filled the room. Crystal glasses clinking. My wedding china on marble coasters. You're desecrating his memory with these ridiculous claims. Daniel's father built this neighborhood. It belongs to people who truly love the community standards. I ended the call. In the silence, my fingers found Daniel's watch. The leather still held his wrist shape. The safe deposit box was ready. Alone in the fluorescent vault, I studied the document one last time. The date matched the week Daniel sat surrounded by foreclosure threats. His voice echoed. I never want you to worry. I ran my finger over his signature, remembering how his hand shook, not from weakness, but love. I won't let them take our last conversation, too. The paper sealed away, but its truth burned brighter than any HOA floodlight. They thought they could erase me. They never knew I was the one holding the pen. For days later, the fluorescent lights of Green Valley Gardens buzzed overhead while I arranged potted ferns. Through the glass, Virginia's silver Mercedes glided in. My fingers froze on the ceramic pot. Susan from the front counter touched my arm. You don't have to stay. Virginia swept inside in black Chanel, flanked by 3 garden club ladies, eyes swimming with theatrical sympathy. A tissue fluttered in her manicured hand. I just want to understand. Her voice carried across the showroom loud enough for every customer. Daniel would have wanted his personal items to stay in the community. The watch his father gave him. The childhood photos. All those precious memories the board needs to preserve. The fern quivered as I set it down. 4 days of this. Virginia appearing wherever I worked, speaking just loud enough for whispers to spread like poison ivy. Mrs. Quinn, a customer asked about shade perennials while Virginia performed. I explained the difference between a Stilby and bleeding hearts as her voice droned on. The obituary listed only the board and Allison as survivors. The locks changed before you could collect his things. Rachel, Monica appeared in the doorway, briefcase in hand. She surveyed the scene with sharp eyes. I need you to sign these papers. I followed her to the break room. Virginia's voice faded behind us. Monica spread documents across the scratch table. Found these in your old files. She tapped Daniel's leather journal. Every business decision, every conversation about money and the HOA documented in his careful handwriting. And the neurologist report from March. Perfect mental capacity. No cognitive decline. They're saying I manipulated him. I tasted bitterness. That I took advantage when his business failed and the liens piled up. Let them talk. Monica's smile held steel. You're not who they think you are. The fluorescent light flickered as we prepared for tomorrow's hearing. My fingers traced Daniel's signature on the mortgage papers, the same strokes that once signed love notes. Morning brought the sterile formality of probate court. Virginia arrived in widow's black, though Daniel was my husband, not hers to mourn. Allison clutched a tissue. Their HOA lawyer painted me in careful strokes, the gold digger, the covenant violator, the woman who swept in during Daniel's vulnerability and let the lawn grow a fraction too long. Virginia nodded at each accusation, silver hair catching the light like a crown. I sat quietly, Daniel's gardening journal in my lap, the one where he sketched our future despite the rules. Monica's hand squeezed my shoulder. Your Honor, the lawyer adjusted his tie. Mrs. Quinn took advantage during documented distress. The board has authority. If I may, Monica rose. Stack of evidence ready. The house mortgage is in Rachel's name alone. Filed 2 years ago with full knowledge and consent. Every HOA lien paid before any special assessment could stick. The judge leaned forward. Virginia's fingers whitened around her purse strap. Furthermore, Monica presented the neurologist report. Mr. Quinn's cognitive function tested above average just 8 weeks ago. She slid the post-HOA agreement forward. Explicitly states his wishes regarding property and board overreach. Virginia's face hardened. He never mentioned. Did you ask him? The judge cut through. Did the board verify any of these accusations before changing locks and filing this petition? Allison shrank as Virginia stumbled through explanations. Each lie crashed against our wall of documentation. The post-HOA agreement stands, the gavel cracked like summer thunder. The home belongs to Rachel Quinn. The board's actions are hereby deemed an overreach of authority. Later that day, Monica arrived at the motel with Chinese takeout and wine. The door opened again, old colleagues from the landscape firm carrying casseroles and memories. Remember when Daniel brought lunch to the garden center every Wednesday? Lisa set down lasagna. Rain or shine. Tom poured wine into paper cups. Said he couldn't let his wife's friends throw out their backs, hauling river rocks. For the first time since the hospital, laughter bubbled up. These people knew the real us. Not Virginia's carefully cultivated fiction. After the party, Monica reviewed tomorrow's plan. The sheriff will escort us. Locksmith is already scheduled. I nodded, spreading inventory across the bed. Missing wedding albums. Daniel's architectural books. Family photos erased like we never existed. Look at this. Monica held up Virginia's flowing script, listing items to remove. She left evidence of her own theft. It doesn't matter. I touched my wedding ring. The house is ours again. The next morning, I stood on my front porch. New keys slid into new locks with a satisfying click. Inside, Virginia's HOA plaques mocked me from the walls. Daniel's bookshelf stood empty. But in his old study, tucked behind a filing cabinet, I found his gardening sketchbook. The final page showed his dream for our backyard. Flagstone paths winding through cottage gardens. An iron bench beneath flowering dogwood. His margin note, for Rachel, so she'll always have a piece of paradise. This is how I'll bring you home, I whispered to the quiet room. One flower at a time. My roses bloomed blood red against the morning frost a month later. Thorny stems piercing the remnants of Virginia's abandoned gardening gloves. The expensive brand she dropped when she fled after the ruling. I gathered the torn fabric, noting the HOA crest still embroidered. The past month replayed every manipulative tear, every orchestrated scene of community grief. The locksmith arrived at 7 sharp. I watched him replace each lock, testing keys with precision. The sharp click of new tumblers sounded like victory. No spare keys, I told him, thinking of Virginia's collection of copied ones. Full security system next. Inside, Daniel's favorite armchair, set empty by the window. Late sun highlighting the worn patch where his hand rested. I traced the indentation, remembering his laugh when I'd perch on the arm, sharing coffee and garden plans that defied every covenant. The security company van pulled up while I unpacked the last box of wedding china. Each piece had survived Virginia's occupation. I arranged them in the cabinet. Restored. Full perimeter coverage, the installer explained. Mounting cameras. Motion sensors everywhere. Stores 30 days of footage. Perfect, I signed, thinking of Virginia's habit of accidental visits. That afternoon, the certified letter arrived. Virginia's elegant handwriting demanded return of community heirlooms, including my wedding gifts. Threat of legal action for emotional distress to the neighborhood curled at the bottom. I filed it with Monica's growing folder. Last week's attempt to claim Daniel's life insurance reminded me why I kept her on retainer. The phone rang as I replanted flower beds. Allison's number. Mom says you're erasing his memory. The furniture. The photos, her voice wavered. I'm restoring our home. Soil crumbled through my fingers as I nestled marigold seedlings, Daniel's favorites. The furniture he chose. The photos of our life together. But the HOA plaques your mother hung, boxed in the garage. Pick them up anytime. Silence stretched. A cardinal landed on the bird bath Daniel installed last spring. She has new evidence about the post-HOA agreement, Allison whispered. She says she can prove. No, the word emerged sharp as thorns. She can't prove what isn't true. The line went dead. I kept planting. Each flower a quiet rebellion against the covenants that tried to erase my marriage. 2 days later, Virginia arrived at Green Valley Gardens where I'd resumed consulting. She swept through trailing, sympathetic friends and curated grief. Rachel, her voice carried across reception. I've come to discuss Daniel's true wishes for the community. My colleagues moved like a choreographed dance. Sarah stepped between us. Portfolio open. Mrs. Quinn is with a client. Tom appeared at my elbow. Drawings needing immediate approval. The protective circle closed, professional. Polite. She locked us out of our son's memorial. Virginia's voice rose. Practice tears, threatening. The service was private, I said calmly. As Daniel wanted, no HOA-approved guest list. The tide shifted. Virginia's friends exchanged glances, noticing the steel under my quiet certainty. Their coordinated support wavered. That evening, Monica arrived with takeout and updates. Virginia's lawyer declined further litigation. Your documentation was too thorough. The post-HOA stance. I thought of Daniel's meticulous notes. His careful preparations, even while dying. He tried to protect me from his mother's manipulations and the board she controlled. The funeral day, 2 days after he died, had dawned clear and cold. Roses from our garden graced the small chapel. Only those who truly knew Daniel filled the pews. Colleagues who supported his dreams. Friends who stood by when the company failed. Virginia and Allison swept in as the minister began. Designer black crackling with tension. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. I rose. Steel wrapped in grief. You don't belong here. You tried to erase him with your rules. Allison's face crumpled. She grabbed Virginia's arm. You're right. Let's go. Mom. Now. Now. After work, I returned home to find Allison by Daniel's favorite rose bush. Petals scattered at her feet like broken promises. When we entered the house, she followed. Mom said you never loved him. That you married him for. I unlocked Daniel's study. His sketchbook lay open. Pages filled with garden designs defying every HOA restriction. Allison traced his handwriting, tears spotting the paper. I remember when he drew like this before Mom took over the board. Her voice broke. We stood in silence, sharing the first genuine grief. The garden breathed around us, Daniel's legacy growing in every careful planting. That night, an envelope slid under my door. Virginia's elegant threat. This house will always belong to the community. I carried it to the garden, past roses and marigolds standing sentinel. The hole for the last seedling waited. I buried her words beneath Daniel's favorite flowers. Not anymore, I whispered to the night air. The marigolds nodded, sturdy and bright against the shadows. Like me, they'd learned to bloom despite the frost. The certified letter arrived Tuesday morning. Virginia's signature sprawled, demanding return of family. Sorry. Community heirlooms. My wedding gifts appeared on her list. Waterford vase. Hand-painted bowl from Provence. I folded the letter into precise quarters, pressing sharp creases. The ache spread beneath my ribs as I read her final threat. Further legal action for emotional distress if items not surrendered in 48 hours. Rumors reached me next day. Susan from the garden center called. Voice tight. Virginia told the Bridge Club, you're selling Daniel's things. Replacing his clothes with new furniture that violates the aesthetic guidelines. An hour later, the bell chimed at my landscape office. Virginia stood wrapped in expensive wool despite spring warmth. Behind her, Mrs. Henderson from the hospital board peered with curiosity. Rachel, Virginia's voice warbled calculated tremor. I just want something to remember my son by. You took family photos, his childhood albums, his Harvard diploma. You're selling everything else, his books, his father's watch, all being liquidated while we grieve. The lie settled. My newest client, Mrs. Peterson, stopped arranging peonies, hand still on pink petals. My hands rested flat on the desk. Daniel helped select. Come to the house tomorrow at 2. Bring Allison. We'll settle this. Virginia's lips parted, but something in my expression stopped her. She nodded once, sharp, before sweeping out. Mrs. Henderson scurried after. The next afternoon, I arranged evidence with care. Daniel's possessions rested on the dining table. Nothing sold. Nothing discarded. Security footage played silently on my laptop. Virginia and Allison removing items while I sat vigil in the ICU. Bank notifications documented access attempts hours after Daniel's heart stopped. The doorbell rang at exactly 2. I smoothed my gray wool skirt. Understated authority. When I opened the door, Virginia's eyes widened at my tailored appearance. No more rumpled hospital clothes. Please come in. I gestured to the formal living room. I've prepared everything. Allison trailed, gaze fixed on the floor. Their heels clicked as I led them to the dining room. Virginia's fingers twitched at the sight of Daniel's things. The post-HOA agreement, I slid the document forward. Signed 2 years ago. Notarized. Daniel's explicit instructions about asset distribution and board overreach. He wasn't thinking clearly then. Virginia's voice rose. The business troubles. The neurologist report. Another paper joined. Full cognitive evaluation 2 months ago. Perfect scores. Virginia's hands clenched. I turned the laptop. Security footage from the day Daniel died. You're removing items. Time-stamped bank attempts. My finger trace dates. I have everything documented. He always chose you. The words burst from Virginia raw. Over family. Over the board. I was his family. The truth rang. You just couldn't see it. You'll regret this. Virginia pushed back. Chair scraping. I walked to the front door, opening it wide. Spring sunlight spilled. Your son loved me. Nothing you do changes that. Virginia's shoulders stiffened as reality settled like a shroud. Her social standing, her careful manipulation crumbling under evidence. Allison lingered. I'm sorry for helping her. For believing. I lifted Daniel's childhood photos. These belong with you. The rest stays here. You'll be alone now. Virginia's final barb as she stepped onto the porch. No family left. I have everything Daniel wanted me to have. I kept my wedding ring visible. Sunlight catching the diamond, including his blessing to build something new. After they left, I walked the empty rooms. Fingers trailed, walls holding 4 years of memories. In our bedroom, Daniel's closet door creaked. His scent lingered in his favorite sweater. We did it, I whispered. For the first time since his death. Tears fell without bitterness. Whatever came next, I faced it in the home we built, the one I protected, just as he protected me. 2 months later, my key slid into the lock with a familiar click. Through bevel glass, morning light painted kaleidoscope patterns across the foyer. I pressed my palm to the solid oak, feeling its warmth. Allison stood on the porch, clutching a cardboard box of architectural books. These were his favorites. Mom wanted to donate them, but I thought you should have them. I stepped back, making space. She followed inside, footsteps hesitant on hardwood where she once stormed with entitlement. Would you like to see what he designed for the garden? She nodded. The spring air wrapped us, heavy with blooming marigolds. Daniel's favorites carpeted the beds in amber and gold. He sketched this. I pulled his college notebook. Pages fell open to curved pathways and terrace beds flowing toward his central bench. I'm building it exactly as he planned. Allison traced the pencil lines. His handwriting. She reached into her bag and pulled out a battered sketchbook. Mom hid these in the attic, his college projects. I thought maybe they belong in his garden. The gift stretched like a fragile bridge. Not friendship yet, but understanding. I returned to work after she left. Landscape tools scattered around the half-finished patio. Each stone fitted precisely to Daniel's vision. My fingers remembered the evening he drew it while winter rain tapped the windows. A place for morning coffee, he'd said, adding shade under a trellis. I stood, brushing dirt from my knees, surveying progress. The bones of his design rose, retaining walls, irrigation lines under fresh mulch. My company sign stood near the gate, Quinn Landscape Architecture. Inside my home office, golden hour light streamed. Daniel's framed photo sat on the desk beside current projects. A widow rebuilding after contentious HOA battle. A divorcee reclaiming her garden from neglect. Women whose stories mirrored mine. Monica arrived as sunset painted watercolor strokes. She carried champagne and glasses. To the garden, she said, settling on the new bench. And to you. We watched twilight soften the edges. My former colleagues had helped plant the final sections this morning. Their wedding gift completed at last. The perennials arrive tomorrow, I told Monica, touching a marigold bloom. Daniel always said gardens need something that returns year after year. She squeezed my hand, like memories and strength. Later, alone, I walked the garden paths barefoot. Stones held day's warmth. Wind rustled new leaves. I settled onto the bench built to Daniel's specs. Fingers over his sketchbook. They thought locking me out would leave me powerless. But I built a home from ashes, not spite, but peace. I didn't win because I took the house. I won because I didn't let them take me. A marigold petal landed in my palm, bright as a penny. I tucked it between the pages and closed my eyes, breathing night air. In this garden, every bloom spoke his name.